We're here today at Compton Abbas Airfield to talk to two pilots who have flown in especially to tell us about a remarkable series of flights they undertook earlier this year to mark the 80th anniversary of the Dambusters Raid. The flights raised money for the Royal British Legion, a charity very close to our hearts at the Westminster Collection, with our yearly issue of the official poppy coins released in support of the RBL. It's my honour to introduce to you Jason Davidson and Simon Shackell. Hi guys. Thank you so much for coming down to speak to us today. If you could start by just introducing yourselves a little bit for us.
I'm Simon Shackell. I'm an aeronautical engineer. I work for Leonardo Helicopters in Yeovil on the mighty Merlin, AW101.
Hi, I'm Jason Davidson, so I'm a flight instructor. I just recently retired from the military after 22 and a half years in the parachute regiment. Yeah, so on the 16th of May this year, we undertook a flight to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Dambusters. We flew over 8 sites connected with the raid, and this was unique because no one's done what we did before. There's been lots of other things, and the sites were all of historical significance to the preparation of the raids. And we did it to raise money for the Royal British Legion.
So what really stands out from the flight for you? Any particular memories?
One of the biggest things to take away was we had like effigies of Lancasters on the inner engine nacelle. So the idea, and we'd named all of the crew and placed them in their crew positions and orders. So every time we looked, we were in a sort of metaphorical formation with 2 Lancasters with the crews with us, and we went past some of the sites. It was almost emotional. You know, it was very poignant. And then the thing that stood up for me from the flight the most was when we went down Derwent Dam. We were up fairly high. We were about 500 feet above the ground, and moving fairly quickly, about 3 miles a minute. They did it in the dark at 60 feet, at 4 or 5 miles a minute, and in a massive Lancaster. So it really struck home how difficult that would have been and how dangerous as well. So the airmanship was what blew me away. I think that's my biggest takeaway.
So how did you go about actually choosing the route?
It was to champion the engineering aspect, the scientific aspect, and the developmental aspect of it from my point of view, as well as mark the locations of the actual the operation where it set off from.
And there was something sort of like some form of synchronicity with this. So we decided some of the sites we'd fly to, and by the time we plotted them out, it ended up being the distance we would fly to the dam was the same that Wave 1 with Guy Gibson flew, which was not really by design, it just happened. And the total distance we ended up flying ended up being 617 miles, which is 617 Squadron, and that wasn't by design either. So there was a lot of swallow moments, just by sheer chance.
Uncanny coincidences.
Yeah, it's incredible. We might just pause for a minute while the Spitfire takes off. So can you go into some detail about the actual flight itself?
Okay, yeah, so the start and finish point was St Athan. Why is that significant? Well, that's where they trained navigators back during World War II. Also, it's where Guy Gibson flew into to get married in 1940, so it had some relevance, plus it's our home base. We departed from there down to the south coast to Chisel Beach in Dorset. That's the famous location for where Barnes Wallis had his inspiration of skipping stones along the beach. That's where they tested the initial bouncing bombs, which went on to become the highball, in use for the Royal Navy. It was never actually used during the war. From there we pressed on out to Reculver, near Margate in Kent. That's where they did all the live tests of the upkeep mine prior to the raid. And that's pretty significant because that's where the whole thing nearly stopped. Everything failed again and again and again. And it's kind of through the persistence of Barnes Wallis that they actually got this thing to happen. And he changed the shape of the bomb and everything. From there we pressed then on up over the east coast of England and then into Duxford at the Imperial War Museum to visit. They had a Lancaster and a bouncing bomb there, or an upkeep. So we had a good look around the museum. That was quite a fitting point. It was also a chance to get something to eat and some fuel. And then out there pressed up to near RAF Coningsby. We pause for this. Yeah. After lunch then we departed Duxford. We routed up on the north, heading north on the west coast up to Lincolnshire Aero Museum, which is a Bomber Command memorial, and they have a taxiing Lancaster, which is NX611, just Jane. So we give them an overflight at low level and then out to Woodhall Spa, where the Dambusters Memorial was. That site was quite important for us because this is the first year, I know it's the 80th anniversary, but it's the first year that there hasn't been a surviving Dambuster. So hitting that target meant a lot to us, and we failed. We couldn't get overhead it because of the clearance we were given, so we had to fly a beam. So a bit like the Sorpay Dam, we didn't breach our target. And out from there, we headed out to former RAF Scampton, which is now derelict, which is an eerily quiet site where this all the real raid began and ended, and then onwards to Derwent Valley, where we pressed down all 3 reservoirs at about 500 feet above the ground, which kind of really brought home the nature of the task these guys had. It was utterly demanding, and they did it in the dark and under fire. It's incredible. From there we departed back down towards Wales, over RAF Cosford. We chose that because on the day of our flight they were opening a Bomber Command memorial, and they had a Wellington bomber, one of only 2 left in the world.
To add something to that, the Wellington in the museum's collection was actually in the Dambusters film, was using the Dambusters film as a camera ship as well. So it had a as it wasn't far off the route, it had a poignancy all of its own to make reference to it.
And then from there we pressed out into Elan Valley in mid-Wales, where it's the site of Nantygrow Reservoir, a little dam. That's where they blew that up in 1942 actually. Was part of testing this idea of how the bouncing bomb would do its job. The Road Research Laboratory had found by accident that if you placed it underwater against the dam wall, you would have a massive effect from a small amount of explosive. That's the thing that actually made this possible. The Germans had considered attacking our dams, but didn't, because they didn't have the technical means to do it, and that's the thing that made this happen.
So why the RBL?
I'm ex-military, my twin brother's in the RAF, Simon's dad was RAF, and my boss, the guy that runs the flying school, is ex-Navy, everyone there is ex-military. So we thought, well, it's got to be a military charity, and the RBL is the only military charity really that looks after everybody. And it would have been wrong to pick an Army one, it would have been wrong to pick an RAF one, and it would have got sacked if I picked a Navy one, so it had to be the RBL. Yeah.
So guys, this is our RBL masterpiece for this year. So the actual metal, the metal there, the Lancaster silhouette, is actually metal from an actual Lancaster bomber. It came from the one of the engine housings, and was melted down and then turned into the wonderful silhouette you see there. We would love to get your opinion on it. What do you think?
Well, it is a masterpiece. I especially like the nice touch with the poppy trail behind it, which is significant of the mole drops over London, over Buckingham.
So obviously, having been taken from an actual Lancaster bomber, it probably evokes all sorts of memories. What do you think it would have been like to actually pilot one of those bombers during that incredible raid?
Beggars belief in the workload, the threats, the continual prospect of, no easy way to say it, certain death at every turning, every corner. Signifies how skilled the pilots were in handling a machine that size, in anticipating the turns through the valley.
It is absolutely incredible. Now, this one doesn't weigh quite as much. It's much easier to manoeuvre. And in saying that, I'm going to manoeuvre it to you guys, because as a gift from the Westminster Collection for everything you've done so far and everything you're likely to do for the RBL, that's a special thank you from us.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. We were not expecting that. Yeah.
Oh, that's a bit tearful. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
That's astonishing. Thank you. Thank you.
We're not going to stop there though, so we're going to go a little bit further as well. So there's one of these each. So it's this year's, so it's the 2023 silver proof RBL poppy commemorative coin. There's one of those each for you then.
Yeah, speechless.
Yes. Speechless and a little teary. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I think it's quite fitting to say, I just said it was a challenge but a lot of fun, is that these guys enabled a world where it could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway from like the Dambusters was to these guys was just one more flight. They did this day in, day out, but it was like after the war, this was like kicked onto the carpet. You know, no one wanted to talk about Bomber Command because some of the awful things that happened, and you know, it wasn't until 1985 that those guys got a medal. So I certainly wasn't expecting to get anything like this today. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you very much for coming down and talking to us.
Oh, my pleasure.